how else to discuss 84 but with the start of this quote? Abadai pointed, seeing them for the first time, and his eyes went wide with abject horror. It was so satisfying watching him turn and flee, because Talonel Elin, unarmed and without his blade, was still the most terrifying warrior on the planet.
A crash broke the silence, windows cracking, air rushing to fill the hole Town left when he moved. And for the first time in over 4,000 years, the bearer of agonies fought back.
Welcome back to Following Note on a Stormlight podcast. This week is episode 256, and we are in chapters 83, 84, and 85 of Winded Truth. Paul, how are you?
Dandy, marvelous. I'm looking forward to this. As always, we have fun characters to talk about. As always, it seems like, and we are barreling towards big moments in this book. So excited to talk about it with both of you.
Elliot?
It's getting real now. Day 7 of Wind and Truth is not pulling any punches. It is going big. Day 7's not even that large. There's not that many chapters in here, but the chapters that are big ones.
It's true. We have Zeth flashbacks. We have Taln getting up off his bed, finally. We have Renarin and Adolin content to discuss.
We also have a patron.
Paul, do we have a patron?
Yes, we do. I'm excited to announce a new patron who I'm going to give you a brief descriptor. I would describe this patron. I'm sorry, by the way, if this is not like funny at all, but I think it's funny. I'm going to describe this patron as Shalon. This patron, this surgeon, messaged me and said, "I have 3 names. Actually, my Patreon is this. However, I have 3 options for a username or a real name, and you are welcome to shout out whichever one." So naturally, I decided to shout out all 3 and bundle it onto one large cup. So I thought that'd work. So without further ado, I want to give a shout out to Trevor, which I thought was funny also. So everyone say hello. Thank you, Trevor. Also say thank you to MK9 Beats, which is pretty cool. MK9 Beats, and as well as in our Discord, Yaslo, who I think recently joined our Discord. So if you haven't, go say hello to Yaslo and a thank you. We appreciate all of our surgeons, absolutely. And it's really fun that your name is Trevor, and I get to shout that out right in this Trevor's face, So
thank you, Trevor.
Thank you, Trevor, MK9 Beats, Yaslo.
All right. Elliot, can we get a brief summary of 83, 84, and 85?
Yeah, let me give it a shot. A lot of things packed into these chapters, as has become par for the course with entering Sander Lanch Stormlight Archive. Chapter 83, we got 3 chapters here, 83, 84, 85. Chapter 83 is flashback with Zeth, and we skip a lot of time in flashback Zeth world. I didn't actually go back and look up how much it is, but it's years. And it goes all the way to the point where he is killing the honor bearer and taking his honor blade, the Windrunner blade. He does this. He's excited about it, but also kind of sad. And he's now joined the ranks of the honor bearers, which is pretty crazy. There's a few interesting bits in that chapter that are rather curious, which I'm sure we'll talk about, including the voice. Chapter 84 starts with Adolin. He's been pretty badly beaten by this thunderclast that he's trying to take down. He's like full on hallucinating back to other scenes as the thunderclast is just wailing on him. And then, so we start to jump around a lot. We're now getting into battle mode Stormlight Archive. So the perspective jumps fairly frequently. It jumps over to Taln and Ash in the hospital. Taln's been in there for a while, right? And we get what I think for me is going to become an iconic Stormlight Archive scene where Taln gets up off the bed to single-handedly push back the entire fused army. Whew. We'll talk about it. Epic. Jump back to Adolin. Adolin is got his own epic scenes. He's climbing up a tower, jumping off of it, taking down a Thunderclass, epic action, all the craziness. He kills the Thunderclass, but the Thunderclass falls on top of him. Not so great. We jump to Renarin now. This is all still in chapter 84, by the way. Renarin, over in his world, he's still processing some things, still coming to grips with his past and where he feels like he's at right now. He feels like he's maybe accomplished some things. He has a face-to-face with Ba-Adel Mishram, and then has a real connection moment with Relaine and a couple romance scenes there to kind of into chapter 84. Chapter 85, back to Adolin. He's crushed, trying to recover, has lost a leg, and the city's pretty much overrun, except for the fact that Taln pushed back the entire army. So he's bought them a little bit of time, even though the army has like almost kind of lost at this point. And then second half of 85 is back to Dalinar and Navani. They're in the spiritual realm still trying to figure out what's going on. They arrive at a kind of parlay for peace between the humans and the singers. They're trying to sort it out. They're arguing. They can't agree. There's some weird hints from Melishi, the bondsmith, about Gareth, the Windrunner. It must be a traitor, all these things. And then the scene ends with this secret meeting between Gareth, the Windrunner, and the singers. All of that packed in 3 chapters.
Sounds good. Thanks.
I like what you mentioned about chapter 84 of like, it just keeps going. Fun fact, I was listening to this chapter for the first time, at least, while I was mowing my yard. And I remember being like, wow, this is crazy. Like, Taln just ran out there. I got to make sure I note down which chapter this is because that was crazy. I look and it's 84. And then, like, next crazy thing happens. A Thunderclass dies. I'm like, whoa, hold on. Which chapter is this? Oh, okay, still 84. Oh, wait, Renarin, like, crazy stuff going on? Oh, wait, hold on. Still chapter 84? Like, there was so much, and there's a one chapter is so power packed.
Do you have 2 words for it, Paul?
I do. Yes, I wrote them down. My 2 words are unleashed and bravery.
Why?
I forget. I was going to say, I don't actually remember if we're supposed to elaborate or not. Unleashed is directly for Talinel Elin. This was sick. It was crazy. It was such a cool imagery of like Taln has been tormented and tortured for thousands of years. And the way they put it is like, and he decided to fight back or something like that. That's a loose paraphrase. But him just going in bare-fisted, just crunching skulls, it was, man, that felt good. Like, it was just so cool. That's a scene I feel like I've dreamed of, seeing Taln or any of our heralds really in action like this is so crazy. And then you had, we'll talk about that scene more because I have a lot more to add. Bravery is like for almost every character in this. Adolin, Taln, Renarin, like all of our characters just exhibiting like just standing up in the face of danger. It just, I think bravery most encapsulates all these chapters. That's my real like summary word, and then unleashed is just Taln is epic. Elliot, what were your 2 words? I'll intro us onward since I think Trevor was sneezing. Those of you who aren't watching on YouTube,
it was a pretty epic sneeze. So check out the video. I do have 2 words. They're similar to yours as well, Paul. For the Taln bit, I picked beast mode, which
excellent choice.
Like a hyphen or something in there to make it one. But your word of unleashed fits it super well also. So all the reasons you just said. My second word is, and I can't even say this without a chuckle. For multiple reasons, my word is Legolas. And I'll explain it later.
Okay. So you chuckled at Legolas, but not at Beast Mode.
No, the beast mode's serious. Beast mode, like
Yeah. Okay.
Talonel
Fair.
Elin, Rise. You said it. The quote is epic. My Legolas is a dad joke, and Trevor's already shaking his head over there.
I'm excited. I
It
don't
is
know if I know
Father's
what it
Day, so I
references.
will allow it.
That's true. It is Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there.
Thank you.
Sorry, to you too. Happy Father's Day.
Well, I'm
didn't
out
say
there,
any
and
father.
I'm a father, so thank you.
That is true. Happy Father's Day, Trevor.
Okay, I'm going to take back over. We're going to talk about Zeth, and then Tol Nadalin, and then Renarin. Zeth flashback, chapter 83. We have Zeth taking over the Windrunner Honor Blade. He has just killed the previous Windrunner Honor Bearer, and I don't remember his name. Rest in peace, whoever that guy was. And he's got a death rattle. I don't have anything else in this chapter to talk about really besides the death rattle. Did you guys have anything else? Because this death rattle is nuts.
Only thing that I have to point out is it feels like this was a big jump in the Zeth flashback. I could be wrong, but it was kind of like, okay, Zeth is training to become like maybe being entered into this group to maybe become an honor bearer, and then it's like fast forward, he's fighting the Windrunner honor bearer like right away, which was cool. I kind of felt a little bit bad for the guy. It seemed like nobody else liked him, so I felt a little bit bad for him. But yeah, nothing else super crazy. This was one of those moments that we needed to check off our list for Zeth flashbacks, but it wasn't super crazy to me. There wasn't a mention of the voice here, though, which we could talk about. But I am curious to know what you're thinking about with this death rattle. I don't know if I tuned into that.
Super fast before we go into the death rattle. I wanted to add too that I was full on jarred by the time skip. I thought for sure we were going to spend like a whole nother day analyzing Zeth's pilgrimage and journey and next steps. And we go full on and skip 5 years or something or more in this. And all of a sudden it's just boom, he's got the honor blade done. And I like set the book down for a second after reading that. And it was like, what? We missed all of that? I thought for sure we were getting 100 pages on that. I mean, we still have a chunky part of the book left. We're almost caught up to where we picked up with Zeth in the very beginning. So now what's left? The voice, I guess, which is the other hint in this slide. So maybe we're going to be spending a lot of time facing the voice. But yeah, death rattle.
Okay, the death rattle. I have no idea what it's talking about. And I would love to try to throw some darts at it with you guys. Let's read it, shall we? I usually have a clue. I have nothing for this. And so let's go for it. As Zeth's previous Windrunner honor bearer guy dies, he says this: I climb the wall of grief towards the light locked away above. I climb the weight of my darkened twin on my back and seek the captive, the light I love. Storms the light I love. What?
You make a great point about this one. This one's hard to throw out ideas on. So, question, quick recheck on our death rattles. They can't they be either quotes from the past or prophetic?
Correct.
Or I don't remember the stipulations, but they're like some kind of pseudo important quote.
They're usually prophetic, but not always. And we have evidence recently that they can be wrong.
Okay, that's true.
The bit of info here that feels like it should be the most important, I'm completely drawing a blank on. And for me, that's the mention of my darkened twin on my back. That is a clue to something. But what?
That's exactly what I've been keying in on and trying to think through. You know, if we want to be direct here, this could be about let's say, get just crazy one thrown out there. Let's say this is about Zeth. Zeth just killed this guy.
I
Let's
thought
say it's
about
about
this. Yeah.
Zeth. And I think if you want to stretch it, you could refer to Nightblood as a darkened twin. That's a stretch. That's a stretch. But dark
Run with it.
entity.
Run with it.
No telling what they may be climbing. There's all sorts of cataclysmic things that can happen. So there's absolutely no telling. But I could absolutely see that being a thing. Reality, I don't know.
It almost, it doesn't quite work, but it could almost be from the perspective of Nightblood. Remember, we got this big old reveal that in Shadesmar, he's this bright glowing light, and that's how he thinks of himself. It's almost, yeah, I don't know.
Could this have anything to do with the girl who stood up?
I thought about that as well. That was actually my first gut instinct, that story of the girl who stood up, just simply because it mentions climbing a big wall, right?
Well, it's not only the big wall. She releases the light that's locked away. And she releases it on the world.
And we know that Shalon is an analog for that, or at least related to. Shalon has twins.
Oh, is Formless the darkened twin?
Yeah.
Very well could be.
Okay.
That seems like the strongest contender at the moment.
Okay. So I climb the wall of grief towards the light locked away above. I climb the weight of my darkened twin on my back and seek the captive, the light I love. Is the is that to Testament? Like the locked away light in the
maybe.
Okay, that's a good guess. I kind of like the Testament guess. The locked away thing made me think of Ba Edo Mishram, which is relevant to their story at the moment. But
True.
I wouldn't describe Ba Edo Mishram right now as the light I love, like
right.
from perspective.
What?
Who knows what could happen with that? There's things that could still happen, but
what about this perspective? Things ain't going so great for Adolin by the end of these chapters. Has Shalon ever described him as like the light in my life?
Yeah, that's what his name means. Adolin means light.
There you have it. Is Adolin about to become a captive that Shalon is going to have to carry the weight of her darkened twin to go try and save the light that she loves?
Okay. I still like the Testament guess better, but that there is something there.
That's fair. I like the Adolin guess because it feels like it. I feel like Testament has been a relevant point, but is not the relevant point for Shalon going forward. You know?
Well, I think she's still going to revive Testament.
I think it's possible. I'm not convinced that that's still where Shalon's character is going. There's a lot still. I feel like we're about to get some crazy Shalon stuff.
Yeah.
Whenever we finally get the mom confrontation, maybe whenever that happens. But yeah, I think that's fair. I think Testament, because we have seen it before very early on of the whole like light thing with Testament. But I do think that would be really cool. I could see it being way more impactful being Adolin for like the listener, but I think that's our best guess is that this is Shalon. Other than that, I don't have much else.
I am leaning definitely in towards that it's Shalon. Good job, Elliot. I had no idea 5 minutes ago.
I had no idea 5 minutes ago either, and just spinning on this with you guys for a little bit popped that into my mind, which is why I love these discussions so much, is just sitting here listening to you guys put a few thoughts together, connects thoughts in my brain, and things start firing. I'm very curious what this is going to be, if we'll even ever learn.
All right. The only other thing we have for 83 is Elliot. Do you have a note on the outline that says you found a signature?
Yeah. So if you're just tuning in now, I don't know why you're just tuning in now. You should probably go back to the beginning of Wind and Truth at least. But at the beginning of Wind and Truth, I talked about how at the Nexus convention where we got our books, I managed to get several different artists to come sign my book. And there were multiple artists, at least 3. I think there were 3, where I saw them credited in the beginning of the book. So I handed them my book and I said, can you please sign the artwork? Yes, that is the piece, Trevor, you're holding up. And 3 of them were like, yes, I can sign my artwork, but I cannot show it to you. It's very much a spoiler. So I handed them my book. I turned around, they signed it, and they handed it back to me. So I've been discovering these as I go. I found a new one at the beginning of chapter 84. Yeah, Trevor, you just held it up. There's this super cool art of a chasm fiend. If you have your book,
No. That's Thunderclass 3.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I'll explain why I actually just messed that up. This is a Thunderclass, yes. The reason why I just goofed that up, because the artist here is Anna Early. She is the one, if you were at Nexus, she was the one who did the Chasm Friends artwork. And she doesn't do, the Lost Tales that they released at Nexus, which was cool. She doesn't do a lot of art. She has like a slightly more like animated or cartoony vibe to her artwork. But this one of the Thunderclass is super cool. And I have a little signature down there at the bottom from her. It's just tiny little initials. Super cool. So I think I have one more. I think there's one more signature that I haven't found yet.
Cool. This artwork is very cool. We'll get into 84 here in a second, but the entire idea of, for as far as we knew, there were 2 Thunderclass, and that number was kind of like there's 2, we think, and then there's this surprise third one that is just hanging out underneath the Azish like temple dome and pops up, and then it's like this huge, like almost demonic version of a Thunderclass, if they weren't already so. That there's the 2 that we've already seen in this artwork above it, which seem a lot more tame than this guy right here, the third one. It's very cool. Very cool. Okay. How else to discuss 84, but with the start of this quote? Abadai pointed, seeing them for the first time, and his eyes went wide with abject horror. It was so satisfying watching him turn and flee, because Talonel Elin, unarmed and without his blade, was still the most terrifying warrior on the planet. Heck yeah, Brandon. Heck yeah.
Oh, keep going, though. Keep going. I'll finish it for you. A crash broke the silence, windows cracking, air rushing to fill the hole town left when he moved. And for the first time in over 4,000 years, the bearer of agonies fought back.
Oh, yeah.
Epic.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. This definitely grabbed obviously super grabbed my attention. And it was just so epic. And like, this is one of those moments I yearn to see on a screen one day. Like, if this scene got to come to life, that would be amazing. It'd be so cool. So absolutely loved this. I'll let y'all chime in if you want, but before we move forward with Tom, I also want to talk about Shalash as well, because I thought it was really impactful.
First of all, I love seeing Talon in action, but this is even cooler because we saw Talon before he became a herald. Talon before he became a herald was the, mildly overweight, like horse stable guy who's just chilling and doesn't really want to, have any issue with anyone. And then Honor shows up and it's like, man, I wish I had my sword right now so I could chop you in too. He's so. I want even more Talon on page than what we get. He seems such a cool character, and then he finally is unleashed for your word there, Paul. What wonderful writing from Brandon Sanderson here.
And I wasn't expecting this either. I wasn't expecting Talon to burst in and fight in this fight, but man, was it a welcome interruption. Like kind of gave me chills. What was incredibly cool. Something else also that I thought it was a nice kind of fulfillment. So they find Talon has held off the fused, but doesn't make it. It says they literally has a dozen spears in him, like holding his body up. It's pretty gruesome.
Yeah.
He's still like holding a crushed skull in his hand, still like in a mid war cry, like absolutely crazy work, like crazy visualization, like, visual there. I'm sure there's going to be some artwork of this, and I'm eager to see it. Like, it sounds crazy, brutal, and epic. But you also find Shalash here as well, right? And she kind of gets some like final words, if you will, and just says that the sentiment is that she was grateful to be side by side with Talon, and that this time he won't be going alone. And then kind of fades off. And I just thought that was a really touching moment because it talked even a bit about her feeling guilty still, like a brother that was betrayed type of thing. And that Talon, obviously he was betrayed in the past, but that this time he won't be going back alone, which kind of touched me a bit. I thought that was really, really sweet. These two, I feel like, instantly became my two favorite heralds if they weren't already. And so really epic scene and also really touching scene. So a plus, and like we said, this is like a third of the chapter. Like, this chapter was crazy. I think people were talking in the Discord about 84 being like the one. Like, this was a big chapter.
Yeah.
And just to fully put into context and perspective what Talon does here, single-handedly, he's got no backup. It is just Talon, I guess, if she's fighting here, which she probably is a little bit.
She does have a chipped sword in her hand, at least.
Okay.
So
I'll be fair to Ash here. It's Talon and Ash up against the entire unleashed army of fused. Like, we just had the dam just broke in this battle. They've lost the dome. They've getting overrun by this thunderclast. Fused, full on, like all the fused have broken free. Hundreds of them, I think. Maybe not hundreds. Lots of them.
It says 400. 400 fused are dead on the floor. Yes.
Fused.
400 fused are dead on the floor.
Not regals, not stormform, not, regular singers. Fused. And Talon, without a weapon to start with, he probably finds some as he's going, right? Barehanded drives back the entire army of fused, such that by the end of 85, where Adolin has that scene, Paul, you were just talking about, where he finds them dead on the top of the mound of slain enemies. The entire army they're fighting has retreated. Talon buys them a whole nother day in this battle. They were overrun. Adolin manages to bring down the Thunderclast, but Talon drives back the entire freaking army of Stinger. This is crazy.
And Abadai sees Talon is dead and still retreats and still runs. Like, Talon and Shalash are dead on top of the mound, Abadai makes eye contact with Adolin, and then Abadai goes through the Oath Gate in retreat. I'm like, he's afraid of Taln's ghost. That's how afraid Abadai is of what he just saw. Oh yeah.
Yeah, this neat. I can't even say more. Like, it's just truly epic.
Who had Adolin losing a limb on their bingo board?
Oof, wasn't ready for that.
I don't think any of us did on that. Yeah, this was brutal. I was scared that Adolin was just going to be gone, just squished. It was a lost limb, which is, in the context of losing your life, it's not bad. Like, that's you definitely take that as a win. The chaotic part of me expected Lopin to pop up out of nowhere, make some kind of one-legged Alethi joke or something. Like, one, I was really expecting Lopin to somehow be here and pop in, and it wasn't the time for a tension-cutting joke, but I would not be surprised if we get one.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way.
Well, I'll channel my inner Lopin and give you one, because one of my words for the episode was Legolas, which has multiple meanings here. So bear with me. This is not just a terrible dad joke. I actually originally picked it and then realized how good it was afterwards, so I kept it. I actually picked it because of him taking down the Thunderclast, and it felt so much like a Legolas taking down the Oliphant moment, where he mounts the beast, epic acrobatics, fighting in the air, swinging around on this chain, stabs it in the back of the neck, takes it down, it falls and crushes it on him. And I think I even said this in the Discord. I can totally imagine, I don't know who would say this, maybe Yanagon. Somebody comes up to him after that and is, totally gives him the line of, well, it still only counts as one, kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly what we need here. But then it gets even better, because after Adolin takes down the thing, what is he? He's Legolas, Lego less, one Lego less, one leg less.
Oh,
no,
man.
Legolas.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've heard a Legolas pun. Like
middle school.
Probably 15 years since I've heard a Legolas pun. So
yeah, I was really excited for the Legolas mention, and I assumed it was killing the Thunderclast. I had no idea what awaited me. I don't know whether to congratulate you, Elliot, or to be mad at you, but I'll choose both, I guess.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Elliot, you put all that work into giving us the graphic of the dome, and the dome no longer exists.
I so wanted that to matter later on in the story. I was hoping that something about the architecture of that dome was going to be important in the battle, and I shed a tear for Talon and Ash dying. I almost also shed a tear for that poor dome getting smashed open, and there's just a throwaway line. Oh yeah, and a whole side of the dome got smashed open, and the enemies were pouring out. And I kind of paused, and I almost went back and pulled up my drawing that we shared way back then, and was like, oh, poor dome.
Yeah, poor guy.
I mean, your graphic does put into perspective the size of the structure, and if without your context of 200 meters wide or whatever it was, crashing open the side of a dome and having a bunch of people pour out, it evokes a visual, but not to the scale that is actually supposed to be portrayed here. So still served a purpose. All right. Anything else with Adolin and Talon? Oh, actually, I have something. Okay, so Talon and Shalash just went back to start the Oath Pact, or to seal away Fused, or have rules changed and they didn't actually go there and they just thought they were going to, or at least Shalash thought she was going to.
Well, so this is going to bring up what happened with Yezrian.
No, Yezrian's is different. Yes.
Yeah. Right. So are we basically saying, could this be an important moment for the reasons that you're saying, that they've now gone back to Braze to rebind the pact or hold him back or whatever, because Yezrian didn't do that because he was captured in the gemstone.
Right.
Yeah, Yezrin didn't like go to Braze or wherever. He's in the gemstone, which has since been destroyed. So he's just kind of gone.
Yeah. For all intents and purposes, Yezrian is dead.
Yeah, like in the beyond, if he made it there, I don't actually know.
Right.
I'm not going to think about it too much.
I am not. I'm not convinced that's what just happened to Shalash and Taln. I think they just went back to Braze because, as far as we know, the Oath Pact is still a thing, or
so
at least it will
just
be
haven't
for the next like
died.
2 days.
So
Yeah.
is this important? Like, if they don't break, can they stop the fused from coming back now?
I don't see any reason why not.
That is the question. I guess we'll find out here in a little bit. Maybe somewhat. I don't think they could entirely. And I don't have reasoning. I'm just, if they could and they just single-handedly hold everyone off, then it's like, okay, well, we all made it. We're all fine, I guess. Or at least for the fused that are going back, right? Like fused that are currently on Roshar actively.
The ones they just killed.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe they could like slow the return, perhaps, of these fused. But yeah, my understanding is they're going back to Braze for a while until they break. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if for sure how this is working.
At least temporarily, would it stop the recycling that's going on the Shattered Plains?
Well, that's where my head was going. Was one of our biggest problems here is the enemy can do exactly that. They have an infinite spawn pool, and could this put a pause to it? As we're talking about this, though, I'm kind of wondering: our heralds seem especially broken at this point,
Right?
like, well beyond the broken they used to be broken. Is even Tom going to be able to hold in the state that he's in?
That's my question also. In my head, I feel like they're going back and they might hold for like a day or two. Like they might do that to maybe the Shutter Plains can survive a day or something, like a little bit of reprieve, but not like, okay, now we don't have to worry about fused anymore. Like I don't think they're doing that.
These two specifically, I feel like, are the two strongest at the moment. Shalash, while she may have broken in the past, I think she's actually had a decent character arc over these 5 books more than any other herald. She's been, talking to Dalinar, talking to our heroes, gaining some hope for the humans of the present. She's become a little bit more proactive, if you will, as evidenced by her picking up a sword and going help Taln. And then Taln, I could go either way on. He could either break immediately or last another 4,000 years.
Yeah,
I'm not sure which one he would. I'm not sure.
That's a great point. Talon is just he's so far gone, like mentally, like he's the most tormented, the most broken, but he's also the toughest and most withstanding. And so it's like a interesting dichotomy you have there. Ash is just like actively climbing to just become a favorite character, not even just like within the Herald context. She just seems like an all-round like amazing person. I don't know. She's there for Tom. She seems like the Herald that we get a little bit of this like, well, the Heralds are really cool and great, like in their day. They weren't all corrupt, or like out of the ones who are sane, I would throw people like Batar in there. Batar seems sane, but like very much does not care for what's going on, does not have any regard, or doesn't seem like she has a strong moral compass, if you will. Ash does. Ash seems to have a good head on her shoulders and is doing the right things and supporting where she can. And like my hat's off to Ash. Like, very cool. So, anyways, I have a lot of faith in Ash at the moment.
Okay. On to Renarin. We have Renarin trying to spar kind of with Ba-Eta Mishram. He kind of takes a stance against Ba-Eta Mishram, and he comes to the conclusion that they should move the prison so the Ghostbloods can't find it. That's not the conclusion I thought they were going to come to. What do you guys think?
Okay, I have a couple things to say. First of all, you mentioned it offhand, like briefly there, Trevor. Renarin is, Ba-Eta Mishram enters the scene with Renarin, and I think if you haven't like keyed into that scene and how it's written, go back and reread it or re-listen to it, because it kind of gave me like the chills. Like, if I remember correctly, Renarin is like looking away, and he like hears her coming like through, or like breaking through this window behind him, and she like enters, and I could just totally picture, like, I feel like I had a good mind's eye of this, of like this really crazy, menacing and cool entry for Ba-Eta Mishram, like entering, just like menacing, like really walking into the frame. This is totally also, if I could picture this as like a show, and you have the episode where Ba-Eta Mishram like bursts through, slowly walks from the shadow like up to Renarin, and then like that's the end of the episode and your cliffhanger. Then you have to wait next episode to hear the dialogue. But really cool imagery on that. That's, once again, this is giving me my list of scenes I desperately would love to see play out on a screen adaptation. But not only was it really cool, I like thought Renarin was really, really cool in this scene. And one of my words was bravery, and that was obviously referring to Tone, Ash, Adolin, basically everybody, and Renarin as well, because in the face of Ba-Eta Mishram, after seeing recent flashbacks and challenges of him, we know Renarin's character over these books. He's had this recurring theme of wanting to be able to stand up at least for himself, if not others. And here he is standing up to Ba-Eta Mishram, who I'd be out of there. I'd be like, peace, see ya. And so big shout out to Renarin. I feel like this was a big moment in his character development as well. Like, just a culmination of a lot of the things we've seen very recently. And so I thought that was really, really cool.
And we start to see something really interesting here, which I think is going to be really big going forward. And that's Renarin starting to build a little bit of a connection to Mishram, and like little C connection, although it could easily turn into big C connection. There's a moment where Mishram is just going wild, because that's kind of what Mishram does when we've seen her. She's just seethingly angry, wants to destroy all humans in her path. But Renarin, when he encounters this, he says this: when I make noise like that, it's because I have so many emotions, I don't know what to do with them all. So they burst from me like a storm. He's like, whoa. Renarin is relating with Mishram here. He's empathizing. He's seeing this and going, I think I've felt like that before. It's like, ooh, okay. Is this going to be important? The fact that they can kind of share something here, connect?
Yeah, that's a great point, Elliot. I think I pointed out bravery, but a large aspect we've seen with Renarin as well is empathy. I think that's the right word. Empathy and sympathy get mixed up in my head sometimes. My understanding is this is empathy of feeling or understanding another person's emotion and feelings and perspective, things like that. The empathy to think about how others feel. And there's several elements that we've seen this. One, we see it here with Ba-Eta Mishram, which takes crazy perspective to see. Like I said, I'd be out of there. I'd be terrified. Like that's like so intimidating, right? Especially when Ba-Edo Mishram is like super belligerent and emotional, like lashing out. It takes a lot of perspective to see that. We see that also in the flashback we read recently, where Renarin is seeing the kids who bullied him when he was young, but he looks at them not with fear and not with like anger, but seeing their hurt and seeing their insecurities and things like that. And that takes a lot of perspective to see. We also see, and we're going to talk about this more later, but Renarin also shows a great deal of empathy for Relaine and his situation as well. And so I feel like empathy is really like the big crux and where Sanderson has really taken Renarin's character is just very deep empathy, like very deep of really understanding people's emotions around him and their feelings, which is very, I think it's really cool. I think it's probably the most empathetic character we have.
Well, I completely agree. I think Renarin sees the world in a different way than everyone else around him does. Like he sees the people, he feels the emotions that others are glossing over because they're trying to save the world, kind of thing. I like Renarin's character a lot for that. And he even has a cool moment the page before this. So before Mishram shows up in his vision, he has a moment here where I think he's conquering some of his fears. He talks about how I know I have a purpose and I'm not even afraid. I'm not even afraid of gods anymore. And then there's this line that just hits me right in my heart. He's going through kind of, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of gods. And then this is just like the narrator, Bernard's thoughts here. In the face of the terrors he'd lived through, the terror of not knowing if he was mad or if he'd somehow been corrupted and was serving evil, simple mortality seemed a distant nightmare, barely remembered. Like simple mortality, that's like the fear of death. Renarin's thinking there like, oh, death? Easy compared to the like kind of mental and emotional torment he's been through. Like very different torment from a lot of the other characters, but just that wrestling with who am I? What am I supposed to be in this mix of all this? What powers do I have? Who is Jean not? And how do I fit into this whole, massive chess game of all of Roshar? And he's kind of gotten to this point where like, if I can figure that out, I can face anything. I felt like that was a big moment for Renarin.
Yeah, he's had glimpses of this ever since we've known him. He's tried, but now I feel like he's really getting his feet underneath him and knowing how to respond, not just wanting to respond, like the arena in Words of Radiance. We've mentioned it a couple times even recently that Renarin has always had the want to help. I really do feel like he now has the means and the ability to help, and it's actually really cool to see.
And I happen to love that trope, the like even like the younger brother trope, if you will, of like not able to stand up to the rest, not able to stand up to his giants, if you will, and then being able to do so over time is really cool. I also expect to keep seeing this. I think we are unlocking Renarin right now, and we've known for a while that Renarin is going to be a big player in this because of the whole Odium diagram not being able to see clearly what Renarin will do. For that reason, we know Renarin is pretty pivotal. We talked about they're on this whole situation to go meet Ba-Edo Mishram, right? And if there's any way that Ba-Edo Mishram could potentially go unnoticed by Odium at some point, it would have to be with Renarin, right? So I feel like for the story, we're gonna see a lot more Renarin, and also like I feel like this is the beginning of Renarin's like fulfillment of kind of the character trope, if you will, like the literally reaping the reward of the struggles and the attempts. And I love what you said, Trevor, of like Renarin has always wanted to help. That's never been a problem. He's never been like, I don't really feel like it today. He always wants to. He's just not always been able to get his feet underneath him and to stand up and to act. And here he is. He's going for it.
In 84, he has a romantic scene with Relaine. And to close out our segment here on Renarin and Relaine, we as a podcast have a pre-drawn up statement that we'd like to close with and briefly discuss. So I'm going to throw it to Elliot, and he's going to talk us through that.
Yeah, definitely. I'll just share a few of my thoughts of processing the events here in chapter 84. And this is not the first time that we've seen some romantic scenes here between Renarin and Relaine. This has been brewing up for a little bit here, but wanted to take just a couple minutes and share a little bit of kind of how I approach this kind of scene. And I want to intro that with saying that how I process, how I think about, how I take a scene like this, where we've got a gay romance going on between two of our characters, is heavily shaped, almost entirely shaped, by my own beliefs, by my own Christian beliefs that I have based on the Bible. And if you want to know more about those beliefs, we actually did a whole episode on the podcast that we released. I think it was on Christmas Day at the very end of last year. So go look for our faith and fantasy episode if you want to know a little more about kind of what we as individuals believe and kind of how that shapes how we approach our fantasy stories. But in my beliefs, I do believe that homosexuality is wrong, and that does shape how I approach a scene like this. And it's a complicated thing because we're talking about fictional characters in a made up world of, between a human and a race of other beings that's being completely made up. It's a little hard sometimes to take my own personal real world beliefs and figure out how I should be reacting to a made up world. But in that faith and fantasy episode, we talked, at least I talked for a little bit about how the reason why I read fantasy, that the reason why I read fictional stories is to help shape myself. It's to learn things about myself. It's to learn things about others. It's to learn about the true rights and wrongs. And I think fantasy does that in a way that nothing else does. And so who am I to impose, my God's beliefs and rules and laws on Renarin, a completely made up character in another world? It's a difficult thing to kind of, talk through. However, I can apply what I believe to how I'm reacting to a scene like this. And so there's a lot about this scene that I really love. There's a lot about the connection between Renarin and Relaine that I think is actually pretty awesome in the way that they relate to each other and the way that they kind of share a past trauma, the way they kind of help each other heal through those things. All those things are really good, but I really don't like the romance. And my reaction to it is simply one of, I can't celebrate this. And I know a lot of readers out there, a lot of you guys listen to us, maybe this is a huge moment for you. This is something that you feel like you really want to celebrate, but I can't go there with you as I'm reading this, just based on what I believe. And so my reaction to this is one of negativity. It is one of, I need to respond to this in a way that's consistent with my beliefs. And that is understanding that what I think Renarin is doing here would be something that would be wrong for me. And that just means that I can't celebrate this moment. I have to take this with a little bit of a heavy step and heavy heart. That does not mean that I don't like Renarin as a character. I love Renarin as a character. He's probably in my top 5. This scene is well written. A lot of this book is well written. I'm enjoying all of it. I just have to react to parts of this in a very specific and negative way because of what it means for how I feel like I need to step forward.
Yeah. And as mentioned, we had talked some about our beliefs, and our goal isn't to make that the crux of our podcast discussion. We will always love Renarin and Relaine and their characters and everything there. And so yeah, but we understand also that there's been statements by Brandon Sanderson, there's been statements by people. We haven't really been looking out for a lot of things to avoid spoilers, but we know that it's something that a lot of people in the community have very strong feelings about. And so we don't want to, avoid anything, but we also want to, love our characters in these stories. And so, yeah, if y'all ever want to talk more, we're always open to talking about these sorts of things, but we want to, not just make that the point of this podcast. Absolutely. So
I want to say thank you to everyone who has chimed in on this discussion so far. There have been people who have commented on our YouTube or jumped in our Discord, and it's all been very civil and polite and respectful. Even if people disagree with us, quite adamantly and get their feelings hurt, I understand that, but it has all been very civil and cordial, and I really, really appreciate that. If anyone does want to continue to talk to us about it, we're happy to do so. In our Discord specifically is probably the easiest way to get a hold of us in our community Discord. We will probably do a more at length discussion about this probably at the end of the book. When we finish the book, between this and Isles of Emberdark, I think we'll probably have a discussion or a content piece of some sort about Renarin and Relaine, because Brandon Sanderson put out his on Renarin and Relaine blog post. I do want to talk about that blog post specifically at some point on the podcast. It's just not going to be today. That's all I have.
We had a lot to cover in these chapters, so yeah, we talked. Do we want the 2-minute version, 10-minute version, or like 45-minute? There's all sorts of stuff you can talk about, but yeah, absolutely. We also, I don't know if we can plug it, but we also have an email if you want to reach out. I don't know. Maybe Trevor will tag that in the description or something, but yeah. Elliot, did you have something else?
I was just going to say, I think my assignment was 2-minute version, and typical me, I think I rambled way longer. That was probably like an 8-minute segment on the podcast. So you got another Elliot rambles for a rather long amount of time, but yeah, happy to talk more. Reach out to us. Lots more to be said, lots more to explain. Very complicated topic. So yeah,
absolutely. But as I was starting to say, next week we are in chapter 86 and 87 and the following interludes, interlude 13 and 14. So hope y'all join us next week, and toodles.
See ya.
On we go.